My name is Golan. I'm from Capernaum, and when I was a young man, I was a fisherman. There were a lot of fishermen, so the processing company was able to pay low prices. But more than that, it was the Roman taxes that took away most of the profits. The tax collectors, also called publicans, watched as we weighed our catch and then demanded taxes that went down to support the local Roman emperor and even other families in Rome, which, don't forget, was thousands of miles away. Our local publican, Levi, who actually called himself by his Roman name, Matthew, was the richest man in town. He, a Jew, made his money stealing from the rest of us, so that he was the most hated man in town as well. I confess that in some days I would get so mad about it all that I was tempted to join the Zealots, a name of men committed to driving out the Romans through acts of terrorism. Both Judas, who worked at the processing plant, and Simon were zealots, and I often wished that I had enough courage to join them. Believe it or not, these men, and even some of my coworkers, became, overnight mind you, religious fanatics. One day, a man from Nazareth came to live with us. Now, Capernaum is a little backwater town, so even though some of our local rabbis are lovely men, I never heard preaching like this fellow. He began to attract some pretty big crowds. I even skipped work a few days to listen to him. He preached that we were supposed to pray for our enemies, which meant I had to pray for the Romans. His name was Joshua, but everyone called him by his Greek name, Jesus. One afternoon, we were all down by the docks and with Jesus. There were Simon and Andrew. Simon was the biggest man I had ever known. Andrew was a handsome young man. Sometimes they didn't show up for work because he had been with a Roman women in Tiberias. Working beside them were brothers James and John. Their father owned one of the processing plants, so they were Capernaum's rich kids. All of a sudden, Jesus came onto the dock. He turned to all the fishermen and said, "Come and study with me. You are fishermen, but with me you will fish for people." Simon, the big fisherman, shouted, "Jesus, I have heard you preach again and again, and I like what I hear. You healed my mother-in-law, and for that I am grateful. I talked with you after your baptism by John in the Jordan Valley. I believe you are the Son of God, the Christ." Simon paused for a few minutes, then said, "Jesus, what you ask is more than I can do. If I go and study with you, who will feed my family? Where will the money come from? Who will provide for my wife and for her mother?" Jesus continued to sit and said nothing. In the next boat, James and John had stopped unloading fish, even though their elderly father, Zebedee, was still scooping fish from the bottom of the boat and throwing them into the baskets at the dock. James said, "Jesus, our father needs us here. If we follow you, he will have to hire people to replace us. The business needs us." Jesus continued to sit and said nothing. After a long silence, Simon climbed out of his boat, handed the mooring ropes to me, and walked over to Jesus and knelt before him. Andrew, James, and John all followed. Zebedee stood in the family boat and yelled for his sons to come back. Jesus, Simon, whom Jesus later named Peter, Andrew, James, and John all walked up to the dock into town, and they never fished in the lake of Tiberias again. Zebedee hired fishermen to operate the boat. James and John had abandoned, and I hired some friends to work on Simon's boat. Even though I gained financially from what happened that day, I never got over the strange feeling that Peter, Andrew, James, and John gained much more than I did. Jesus had chosen for them something very special. I told myself that he didn't choose me because I had a large family and I couldn't abandon him. I still wish I could have gone with him. Later, I heard that he had also chosen the publican Matthew to be one of his special group of 12, and that really angered me. Then I heard that he had also chosen the two zealots, Judas and Simon. Jesus called himself the Son of David, which were words that we would use to describe the coming Messiah. I was thrilled to think about what it would be like if Jesus became the new king. But then, a few years later, I heard that Jesus had been arrested and executed by the Romans, just like a common criminal. I wondered what had happened to my friends that left to follow him. I wondered what would happen to all of us who believed in Jesus. Would we have to die like he did?